Thank you so much, Senator Tuberville, for hosting this discussion, especially during National Women's Week. It's great to have so many law enforcement officers around the country here in Washington this week. And particularly, I want to say thank you to those familiar faces that I see here at the end of the dais. Appreciate the great work that you all do in our wonderful state of Alabama. And it is an honor to stand shoulder to shoulder with each of you. I know that we're going to speak of a number of important issues today, whether it's the fentanyl crisis or the rise in violent crime or the disaster at our southern border. And I want to highlight that there is no one who knows these issues better than the hardworking men and women in law enforcement. They see these things, challenges, face to face every single day. I also want to say thank you for leaving the safety of your home every day so that we can return to ours. I want you to know that I believe, and we've got to work diligently to make sure that we not only support you, but that we move efforts forward in this Congress and beyond that allow you to do your job even better, making sure you're the best trained, equipped, and ready across the country. I also want to just say, as ranking member of the Homeland Security Subcommittee there on appropriations, continuing to make sure that we keep our community safe by securing our southern border to the top priority in mind. I am proud to work with so many of my colleagues here in the Senate and certainly all of the distinguished members here on this panel to courageously stand with our courageous law enforcement officers and always back the blue. So I look forward to continuing to partner together and appreciate the opportunity to hear from all of you today.
I do. Senator Britt, you are the sponsor of the Lincoln-Riley Act here in the Senate, which obviously, as you know, requires ICE to arrest illegal aliens who commit certain crimes, but most importantly, to detain them until they can be deported. Now, I certainly understand how important this is to the safety of our communities during my time as acting secretary. I think, unfortunately, a lot of members of the general public probably weren't paying attention a lot to this issue prior to Lincoln's unfortunate death. I think today they are, and so I think that's an opportunity for us. And so clearly there are some very real-world implications for local law enforcement not partnering and not working with federal law enforcement. So I'd love to, talk a little bit more about your views on this topic. Obviously, the importance of the legislation that you sponsored, but other actions that perhaps Congress is looking at to address this issue.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for the question, and thank you for your service. Was certainly proud to introduce the Lincoln-Riley Act alongside Senator Ted Budd from North Carolina, and I want to talk about the importance of that and why we need it. But before that, kind of getting to the overarching theme of today and the complete disastrous policies of the Biden administration. No one should believe President Biden that he is serious about securing the border, and there are a number of things that you can point to. First of all, when he put forth his budget proposal this year, he actually had a 2% decrease to the Department of Homeland Security. Now, we know that Department of Homeland Security, to your point earlier, is obviously the most important thing in keeping our homeland safe, whether it's our Border Patrol agents, whether it's TSA, whether it's Coast Guard, you name it. That represented about a $1.25 billion decrease in the department's budget and his proposal. Now, you would say, okay, well, we need to save money. Let's look at our national debt. We're $34.5 trillion in debt. Let's start cutting. Absolutely, I would agree. But that's not what he did. He put money where he places value. And so while he had a 2% decrease to the Department of Homeland Security, he increased EPA by 19%, almost 20% actually, this year. Absolutely, totally ridiculous. When you're looking, too, at fentanyl, we've talked about that, leading cause of death between the ages of 18 and 45 in this nation. He didn't have any new funding for non-intrusive equipment at the border. We know, as you said earlier, where this is coming from China, makes its way to Mexico across our border. Infiltrating every community across our country and the great state of Alabama. No new money for that, and only marginal increases when it came to actually counter fentanyl, staffing, labs, technology. Completely and totally unacceptable. This administration is not serious about solving the problem. And then earlier, as we talked about human trafficking, if you look back at 2018, human trafficking was a $500 million business. Now, under Joe Biden, it is a $13 billion industry. So the facts are not on their side, and that's why we've got to get this back under control. When it comes to the Lake and Riley Act, the Lake and Riley Act, very similar to Sarah's law, actually requires ICE to detain these illegal migrants that come here and commit these various crimes, detain until they can be deported. That is step one. Step two, it gives our states the opportunity to actually hold open border federal officials accountable for not enforcing our nation's immigration laws. We all know that we're a nation of immigrants. We're also a nation of laws, and those laws need to be enforced for the safety and security of Americans all across the country. And then third thing that we need to do, obviously, as Congress in this whole thing, is cut off funding streams to sanctuary cities. If you say that you are not going to cooperate with our federal officials, you're not going to enforce the laws on the books, you're not going to work with ICE when you have these things happen. I mean, you look at what happened to Lake and Riley, and her alleged murderer that both in New York was let go of NYPD custody, not detained by ICE, and then in Georgia with a citation there for shoplifting, and again, let go. If the Biden administration was courageous enough to actually enforce the law, I believe Lake and Riley would still be alive. And so this piece of legislation pushes that forward. And so I think we got to continue to work on all those avenues and continue to work to push this piece of legislation. It has recently become bipartisan. It's interesting how that happened. Happy to have people from the other side of the aisle join us. If they want to see the light, we're happy to welcome to it. And I hope that more and more Democrats will get on board, put politics aside, and actually put the safety and security of Americans first. A couple of things that I also think that we need to do. You look at Senator Cornyn's Back the Blue Act. You look at Senator Braun's Thin Blue Line Act. These are things that not only show our courageous law enforcement officers that we stand shoulder to shoulder with you, it also sends a message to Americans that says we have your back. And so making sure that we push those, I think, is critically important. And then last but not least, something that I'd like to mention is I am really proud of this group of senators for standing up and saying enough is enough when it comes to the crime-ridden policies or soft-on-crime policies that we see here in the District of Columbia. This is our nation's capital. You should feel safe and welcome and comfortable coming here. But to earlier points that we've seen, the people who sit on the city council, the mayor herself want to prioritize left-wing agenda over the safety and security of visitors who come here, of Americans, children who want to see the nation's capital, to witness history. And so we have pushed back on that successfully. I think we need to continue to do that in Congress, make sure that our voice is heard, and make sure that this place, the nation's capital, is somewhere where everyone can come and feel safe and secure. We just got to get back to prioritizing the rights and safety of hard-working people who sent us here and not those criminals who want to do them harm. So thank you. And I'd like to add, obviously, to Senator Tuberville's point, Chad, under President Trump's leadership, we had the most secure border of all times. And we see what happened under this administration. Comes in first 100 days, and Biden does 94 executive orders. He says, we're going to stop all deportations. We're going to halt construction of the border wall. We're going to give amnesty to millions. This acts as a magnet. These policies act as a magnet for these people to come here. And we've even seen in discussions about potentially working to secure the border that President Biden is not willing to give up the very tools that he's using to abuse and create this crisis. And one would be if you look at the presidential parole authority. So President Trump paroled, on average, 5,600 people a year into the country, 5,600 people a year. At a Senate Judiciary Committee hearing, you saw Senator Graham expose that this president, President Biden, is actually paroling 1 million people a year into this country. And you look at that abuse of that parole authority, and to your point about the people who are coming here now, Chad, and also you look at Lake and Riley's alleged murderer, and so many of these people are being paroled into this nation without proper vetting. And when you look at the numbers that were given from, the number of terrorists that are caught at the border, what is it, like 357 known terrorists that have been caught at the border? And that isn't even, in the previous administration, it was 11. And that's not even including the 1.8 million gotaways that we don't know who they are, where they're going, or what their intentions are. And then we leave those to our law enforcement officers in every community to deal with. So it's really, it is time for a change. We need to put policies back in place that actually work.
Yeah.